It is wonderfully appropriate that Africa is a young continent.
We call on them to ensure effective and meaningful participation of African indigenous peoples in all development agendas and high-level.
Thank you very much, Nairobi, for welcoming all our guests. Thank you very much, the people of Kenya.
And so it's the last day of the Africa Climate Summit here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. Hello there, welcome to Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. This is the day where it is expected that a final declaration from African leaders will be made known to the rest of the world. Exactly what will be the positions? Let's take you to the auditorium where the event is expected to take place at and bring you details.
For global well-being. Our Agenda 2063 is an agenda for the benefit of all humankind, and the Africa we want aligns with the planet we need. The cradle of humankind is also its destiny, and Africa is the future, I dare say, of the world. Permit me, Excellencies, to express how profound and proud I am of the quality and scale of what we have been able to accomplish in this inaugural Africa Climate Summit. The boldness, vision, diversity, and thoroughness of the contributions made here in terms of debate, exhibitions, collaborations, and other activities have been deeply encouraging and also inspiring. During this action-focused summit, various stakeholders, including governments, the private sector, multilateral banks, and philanthropists, have made substantial commitments totaling a remarkable US $23 billion for green growth, mitigation, and adaptation efforts across Africa. Let us give them a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Notable highlights include a transformative partnership investing US $60 million over 2 years in expanding grid access in rural Burundi, a US $4.5 billion commitment from the UAE, represented here by my brother, to boost renewable energy, substantial contribution from the European nations, and significant investments from the private sector, entities like Masdar, PowerGen, Leapfrog, Gross Boundary, and Husk Power, emphasizing renewable energy initiatives. The signing of Kenya's green hydrogen strategy with the European Union is expected to drive and accelerate green manufacturing and create thousands of new high-value jobs in addition to attracting large private sector investments. Additionally, there has been a notable increase in adaptation financing, reflecting a deep commitment to Africa's sustainable future and energy systems, aligning with the ambitious Nairobi Declaration. Our youth have not been left behind in the robust conversation that has taken place at this summit. They have provided us with excellent models on how we must approach our date with an African future, by being open to possibility, bold in imagination, and willing to embrace radical and radically transformative technologies, ready to question the things we take for granted and explore new alternatives, and most of all, always seeking opportunities to collaborate locally as well as globally to achieve positive change. Our youth stand out in this summit, and congratulations to them. It is wonderfully appropriate that Africa is a young continent. The future does not merely belong to us. Our youth make us the future. Proceeding on the recognition that the reform of the multilateral financial architecture and the mobilization of adequate financial resources is necessary for progress in our journey into the future, we have challenged the international community to exercise a level of imagination in governance and climate action that is commensurate with the imperatives to overcome the immense existential challenges of our time. I am satisfied that we have done very well in our first Africa Climate Summit. I'm delighted that much progress has taken place here, proud that we gave yours best and grateful for your steadfast support and commitment to our collective aspirations and unity.
We, the private sector of Africa, take this opportunity offered by the African Climate Summit 2023 to affirm our commitment and support in recognition of what our governments have been able to achieve. We feel, as the private sector, we have a role and a responsibility to work together with our governments to deliver on the commitments that the governments have made to the African people. The effort to address climate issues, we will start as a partner and deeply applaud the commitment of the African states to address climate action and to drive green growth and climate finance. We declare our support to the African Declaration and pledge our commitment in very specific areas, namely, on climate finance, we commit to establish mechanisms that scale up green investments from the private sector. On green investment, we commit to adopt green and circular business models, designing products that are environmentally friendly and ensure integration of sustainability throughout the value chains. On decarbonization, we commit to actively seek opportunities for nature-based solutions in decarbonization plans and our commitment to net zero, carbon markets, and just transition. On green transition minerals, we commit to invest in green mineral projects and their value chains to provide fair working conditions, ensure equitable wages, and safeguard the health and safety of employees and any informal sector participants. On
People of Kenya. We, the African indigenous peoples, gathered for the African Climate Summit Pre-Summit Forum from the 1st to 3rd of September 2023 here in Nairobi, Kenya. Hereby, we call on African states, governments, bilateral institutions, and other actors to create a focal point and liaison offices at the African Union headquarters of Africa for indigenous peoples. We call on them to ensure effective and meaningful participation of African indigenous peoples in all development agendas and high-level decision-making processes such as the African Climate Summit. We call for stop to further displacement or forceful evictions of indigenous peoples from their territories. We call on you to affirm effective safeguards and security of land tenure and natural resources to guarantee bare minimum application of free prior informed consent, principles on any investments or projects on indigenous people's lands and territories as enshrined in the United Declaration of Indigenous Peoples' Rights. We call for the recognition and strengthening of traditional knowledge systems that promote adaptation and resilience through policy frameworks and programs. We call for partnerships that integrate traditional knowledge with conventional scientific knowledge systems and practices. We call that you ensure ease of mobility of Africa indigenous peoples scattered across nation states through policy interventions and mutually negotiated transhumance protocols to help promote climate resilience. We also call that you develop clear guidelines and policy frameworks to cushion indigenous peoples from potential exploitation of dishonest investors, especially on carbon trading. We call that you accelerate meaningful and impactful sustainable development projects and benefit sharing. Establish Indigenous Peoples Climate Resilience Fund to accelerate the realization of sustainable development goals and to mitigate against the impact of climate change on indigenous peoples, in particularly women, children, youth, and persons with disability. In conclusion, we reiterate that although we, the indigenous peoples, contribute the least to global emissions that lead to climate change, we suffer the most from its consequences. We are here with a solution and experiential lessons from Mama Africa. There can be nothing for us without us. Thank you so much.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa indeed is a religious continent, and therefore nothing can be done without recognizing the influence of religion in whatever that we do as a people and as a continent. Incidentally, the Africa Climate Summit is taking place within the season of creation, where people of faith and good intentions are invited to pray and take action for our common home that is bleeding and groaning because of human actions driven by greed. We, as a people of faith, we recognize that matters of climate change are matters of life and death and cannot be commodified, cannot be objectified, and cannot be politicized. And we are driven by that. And that is how, as people of faith, we gather during this summit, reminding ourselves that the welfare of the earth is our welfare. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Nairobi Declaration for us, having reviewed it, is both bitter and sweet aspects, which presents fears and hopes of the future. We, as people of faith that are often the first respondents in crisis situations, including the ones that are caused by climate change, are wrestling with the question whether there is honesty and truthfulness in the entire process of negotiation. We are worried that the sweet part of the declaration, which is the call to action, will be subsumed by exigencies of time and many other aspects. Your Excellencies, as people of faith, we continue to pray and act rightly for the common good of all, while calling for greater transparency in climate finance management. It is greatly going to be beneficial if a mechanism like what was used during the Global Fund to combat HIV, malaria, and TB, the country coordinating mechanism is very important, and if we can institute that, all the stakeholders within a country will find space in climate financing that will lead to greater adaptation and resilience for our people. May God bless Africa, our home, and our future. I thank you.
I'm honored once again to address this all-important summit. Each of us, when we came here, aimed for an outcome that would be transformative and reflective of the urgency of addressing the climate crisis based on latest science, the imperatives of climate justice, and for Africa, recognition of the continent as the special needs and the circumstances region. Throughout the 2 days, we have listened to our leaders and all key stakeholders. We have no doubt, listening to our leaders, that they understand the existential threats posed by the climate emergency, and in totality, hearing from them, we have some convergence on very critical issues. And one of it is enhanced contribution by those who have caused the climate crisis to honor their commitment by deeply cutting their emissions, because that is where the biggest problem is, and ceasing from transferring the burden of action to the victims of their actions in the name of forced solutions to climate change. And so also providing, which is very important, adequate, predictable, and easily accessible finance, particularly for adaptation and resilience building in Africa. At this critical moment, Excellencies, we urge you to prioritize the suffering of the people of Africa, regardless of this outcome. We implore to act with one vision and speak one voice at the upcoming COP28 in UAE, and really urge you to really reflect on what is happening to our people. I want to conclude by saying that time is of essence. The scientific evidence is compelling, the window of opportunity is closing, and the stakes are too high. We must act swiftly, together, for a sustainable, ecologically just, equitable future for Africa and the world. And Your Excellency,
to confer, consult, deliberate, and formulate consensus on a clear, new, bold, innovative, transformational, and distinct African position on how the international community must engage with the undeniable climate emergency that is threatening human well-being and life on our planet. The Africa Climate Summit is both a demonstration of the unwavering collective commitment of the people of Africa to their vision to make humanity's first home here in Africa a land of abundant potential, limitless opportunity, and the possibility of shared prosperity. It is also showcases our determination to mobilize a global coalition of emergency responders to ensure that the industrialization necessary to drive future economic transformation restores our planet's vitality and ecological balance. At the summit, our shared understanding became clear that Africa is not only the cradle of humanity, it is indeed the future, and that we are the last frontier of untapped potential in the form of hundreds of millions of young men and women who are educated, skilled, motivated, innovative, ready and willing to drive the enterprises and industries that will unlock the possibilities promised by our immense endowments of natural assets, mineral resources, and green energy potential in order to unleash opportunities and prosperity for Africa and the world on an unprecedented scale. At the summit, we also made it clear that we are aware of the unjust configuration of multilateral institutional frameworks that perpetually place African nations on the back foot through costly financing, which plunge our economies into debt trap and deny them resources needed to mitigate and adapt in response to climate change, invest in energy transition, and facilitate industrialization to create jobs and wealth, and to reduce inequality. As a continent, we have developed our common position, which encapsulates our ambition for socio-economic transformation and our climate action agenda. This position is anchored on the potential that Africa holds to decarbonize the global economy and set the stage for green industrialization throughout the world. We demand a fair playing ground for our countries to access the investment needed to unlock the potential and translate it into opportunities. We further demand a just multilateral development finance architecture to liberate our economies from odious debt and onerous barriers to necessary financial resources. We are clear in our minds and hearts that the international community must walk with us in this journey into a future of prosperity and security in an ecologically balanced, thriving planet. We are therefore determined to have difficult conversations, take hard decisions, and make uncomfortable changes to set international consensus on an Afrocentric and globally inclusive path into an African future. On a continent as young as Africa, it is impossible to imagine the future without the youth. Our young men and women in every African country are the primary stakeholders who will define and drive our agenda for green transformation and sustainable opportunities. Our message will not be clear if the voice of the youth is missing. Our efforts to achieve prosperity will not succeed if there are no opportunities for the youth. And our journey will be long and hard and in vain if the youth are not coming with us. Let the declaration of our commitment to act in unison and deliver our aspirations go forth in the firm, clear voice of a united Africa from Nairobi today, and tell the world about Africa's youth potential, opportunity, and its capacity to actualize a world of possibility. We understand that possibility, opportunity, potential, and youth all point to the future. That is why Africa is the continent of the future, because we are a young continent, green and futuristic. Thank you very much. May God bless you, and may God bless Africa. Let me now take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce my colleagues, the men and women who patiently have waited for this final moment for us to endorse the Nairobi Declaration that sets the path for not just Africa to develop solutions for Africa's challenges, but to develop solutions for global problems. We are very confident that going into the future, starting from Nairobi to New York to UAE, our message will be clear, our message will be forthright, and our message will be firm. Let me introduce my good brother, the Africa Union Commission Chairman, Moussa Faki. Pigeni makofi jameni. Let me also introduce my dear sister, right here, the President of Ethiopia, my dear sister Saleh Work-Zewde. She's here. Let me also introduce my brother, who just joined us last evening, the President of Chad, Idriss Déby Itno. Thank you very much, my brother, and welcome to Nairobi. Let me also introduce Thank you, Worky, the Prime Minister of sure that it is Makofi. Thank you very much. And of course, our sister Patricia Scotland, our Secretary General of the Commonwealth. Beginning Makofi, thank you all the way. They're right here. My very best wishes as we march on with the Nairobi Declaration into the next destination. Thank you very much, the people of Kenya. Bless. We appreciate everybody who has been here. Thank you very much, Nairobi, for welcoming all our guests. Thank you very much, the people of Kenya, for welcoming all our guests. My very best wishes as we march on with the Nairobi Declaration into the next destination. Asanteni sana, God bless you, and God bless our great continent. Thank you very much.
And so there you have it, the final declaration as delivered by Kenya President William Ruto. It's left to be seen really whether or not African leaders will take up this new mantle, this new push to have a reform of global financial markets, and whether or not really it is a possibility. From us here in the Kenyatta International Convention Center, it's been fun bringing you all of the happenings from the Savo Ballroom, where a lot of the action has been taking place. We're back in Ghana shortly to continue with all of the details. Many thanks for watching.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.